Welcome to the Micromobility Podcast. I'm your host, Prabin Joel Jones, and I have another exciting episode today. Before we get into the episode, a quick announcement. We have Micromobility Europe coming up in Berlin next year on 2nd and 3rd of June. Tickets are on sale, so go to micromobility.io and get your tickets. For speakers, please send in your speaker requests, preferably before end of the year, due to higher demand. With that, let's get into the episode today. So today we have Henri Moissinac, the CEO and co-founder of Dott. So he was on the pod about 5 years ago together with his co-founder, Maxim. And what's fascinating is that he has a profile which nobody else in the industry has today, right? So he's PhD in computer science, built an e-commerce business during the dot-com era, sold it to eBay, and then he was building the mobile part of the business within eBay when smartphones weren't around. So it was much before smartphones. And then he moved on to Facebook. He was heading mobile there, scaled the business from 1 million users to 1 billion users, and then moved to Uber, Ofo, and then co-founded Dott. So incredible profile. And Dott as a company as well. People who followed Dott, they would know they had very humble beginnings, did not scale as fast as the other competitors like Lime or Tier, Voy or others. But then eventually in 2024, they merged with Tier, and now it's a much larger business, right? And today, post merger, it's called Dott. They also closed a recent funding at 85 million. So it's an exciting story, right? And I'm super happy to have this conversation today. Henri, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for taking the time. Very interested. Exciting.
Absolutely. So let's start by setting the scene. So we spoke a lot about Dott's founding story before. Also the merger and many of the previous on stage as well. So we'll skip all that and dive straight in. Can you set the scene about where is Dott as a company today compared to many years ago?
Yes, I mean it's funny you were telling the story in the early days. So some people call us the cockroach of the industry. It never dies. And it's always there at the end. Anyway, so today we're one of the largest players in the world. We operate in 20 countries from the UK all the way to Saudi Arabia. Germany, France, Belgium, Italy are our largest countries. I think we operate in something like 400 cities. We operate about 200,000 live vehicles. 90% of that is in a regulated footprint. That wasn't the case 6 or 7 years ago. We're EBITDA positive and we're almost free cash flow positive.
Wow. Okay. This is another story that I keep saying on stage and also to people that I meet. Many years ago, I was talking to somebody who was very important in the industry, and they were telling me that we can ignore Dott because Dott is not scaling enough, scaling fast enough, not raising funds fast enough. This was when Tier was launching cities every week, right? And looking back, it's so fascinating that some of the bigger players they're not around and Dott is still around. That's.
But it's something that is not specific to micromobility. If you look at, for example, the race in AI, the race in search a while back, the same in social networking and so on. There's two fundamental elements. One is product market fit. You need to build a product that fits the market. And the second one is timing. So for example, I was at Facebook in the early days. Even if we are 1/10 of the size of MySpace, we were convinced we had a better product. But we were coming after MySpace, after GeoCities, two companies that went to the market too early. And it was all desktop, there wasn't mobile. And it's really mobile that made Facebook a good thing. So I think it's a bit the same when we started in micromobility. We're thinking we need to build a better product. And then we need to time the way we go to market. We don't want to be too small, so we are irrelevant. But we don't want to be too big until the fleet and its cash flows pay for itself. And in the early days, we all know how difficult it was to make money out of the whole hardware. So we thought if we overextend, we're going to die.
Yeah.
And so every entrepreneur in general needs to work this out. Build a great product and then time yourself to market. Don't waste too much resources, but still be there. It will be very interesting to see how the AI race lands in 5-6 years from now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Is it going to be Google, OpenAI? Who knows? I have no idea. But
absolutely.
they're all spending like crazy, and they all have a great product. But you don't want to go too fast and you don't want to go too slow.
Yeah, exactly. One of the interesting things. So this is also why I acquired Micromobility Industry. So when I was looking at the sector, what is very evident is that the entire market is at an inflection point, and our thesis was that more companies will evolve as winners, more cash will come back to the industry. That's exactly what's happening this year. I mean, Voy raised cash. You also closed a funding round, right? Can you unpack that for us? What's also interesting within that funding round is that there's an equity component which many others do not have, right? So can you unpack that for us?
Yeah, sure. So in general, not specific to Dott. I mean, we're one example, but other players. I think there are three things that are going on. The first one is that a lot of the players, including Dott, we have the scale and we have the resilience. So, for example, if you look at our footprint, it's very large. We have a very large user base. We do hundreds of millions of trips. We have city licenses that are here for the long term. They get renewed and so on, but most of the time they always get renewed. It feels like it's quite stable. It has a very large footprint to grow, and it's quite resilient. No matter what happens in one city, we're going to be fine. The second thing is we have profitable growth drivers in place. So there's all the tailwinds, cities building more bike lanes, fewer cars, younger generation doesn't have a driving license. They like to share, they use ride hailing, they use bike sharing. We have all the work we do ourselves on software, hardware, operation, with every generation of hardware, software, and operations models. The margins increase. And then everybody now has a scale that it's so large and the margins coming out of the cities are so large that they compensate for HQ costs, even if you have a lot of R&D in the HQ costs. And that is something new for the industry. It wasn't the case in the past. But then on top of that, maybe the last point is that everybody sees the impact of new hardware. It's better for the user, it's better for operations, better for your margins. So that trend is accelerating. So you have now this virtuous circle where you have the scale, the resilience, you have the profitable growth drivers in place. And then with every generation of hardware, software, and operations, you're actually making more tomorrow than you were making yesterday. And so the world for entrepreneurs, the world for employees, the world for cities, the world for users, the world for investors is completely different today than it was like 4 or 5 years ago. And that's why you see companies like us raising. Now, specific to that, what we've raised based on our future cash flows. So now everybody is confident in the cash flows in the future. And so you can invest in your CapEx, leveraging the cash flows of the future. And that, again, is something completely new. A few years ago, all the players had to raise equity for that, capitalists and other types of investors in order to fuel your growth. Now you can use your cash flows, and it's game-changing for everybody.
Got it. So for companies like Dott, you have to buy new hardware, frequently. Does it also mean that you have to keep raising, such kind of debt frequently, like every year or every 2 years?
So we are just like many transportation companies. We look like an airline company that needs to buy their planes on a regular basis. Like a bus company that is going to replace its buses, like train companies and so forth. There's a cycle. In our industry, it's about 5 years. I think a healthy position is to be able to renew 20% of your fleet every year. For an airline company, the cycle will be longer. And then you get all the benefits of new hardware. So an airline company will put its best planes on its most profitable lines, and instantly they get the same users, the same traffic, but they get, I don't know, they spend a lot less on kerosene, for example, with new engines. It's the same for us. We have deployed, for example, I'm in Paris today. We have deployed a new fleet in Paris. The fleet in Paris can do twice many more rides per battery swap. And so with the same number of rides and users and revenues and so on, we have almost half of the costs. And so, it's healthy to replace the fleet. You don't want to replace your entire fleet every year. There is a good balance. But at Dott, we believe it's about 20% of the fleet. The fleet can last much longer. The lifetime of our fleet is probably 7 to 8 years. But we want to see how it goes. And for now, we replace the fleet about 20% every year. So the consequence of that is you can fund the fleet with your existing cash flows, or you leverage your future cash flows. And it's very normal and healthy for a company that is based on cash flows to have some debt. Every business should have some level of debt. You don't want to have too much. You don't want to have too little. We feel very good where we are today.
Got it. Do you think it's still a VC story? Because I'm focusing on the equity part because that is quite interesting for me. Do you think there's still scope for VC funding in this space? Because if you look at the market, there's still so much to grow, right?
So on the equity side of things, to make a long story short, you could go raise money from venture capital. You could raise from private equity. You could raise from family offices. There's plenty of different, and some investors, they like to be late stage. Some investors like to be early stage. This industry is not for early stage anymore, unless you're building something completely new, a piece of technology, or the people that do bike sharing. We are more in the camp of private equity, late stage growth rounds. And there's still opportunity to raise equity. People that invest in equity, they have a different way of thinking of the world than people that raise debt. It's
Okay.
two different weapons. So we have the cash flow, we can raise debt. If we or if someone else wants to top up with equity, it's always interesting to strengthen your balance sheet.
Yeah. So moving on from the investment story, looking at the operations and how the company is today, right? I mean, before merger, it was a small company. Now you have the scale, right? And probably your North Star metrics would have changed as well. What's your North Star metric today for such a large company?
So I personally have two metrics. The first one is the number of rides. It's a very simple metric. We are shy of 100 million per year. I would love to double that as fast as possible. But then the second most important metric for me is the vibrancy or the frequency of the relationship we have with our riders. So it's extremely important to be part of their lives on a monthly basis with a high number. And so on our footprint is about 6 rides per month, and that's low rider, high riders, good cities, bad cities, winter, summer. Six transactions per month for consumer service. It's a very high number. I know I have lots of friends that run consumer businesses. They would love to have this type of level of interaction with their users. But that 6 could be 7, could be 8. The more we make the service reliable, affordable, available everywhere, the more they get used to it. The more they know they can depend on it, the more it creates opportunities in their lives to go faster, with more freedom, at the right place, at the right time. And so I think the ceiling is almost, well, we're never going to get there, but if we could get to 2 rides per day per user, it would be fantastic. Where we still have a long way to go. We
Yeah.
had 6, maybe we can get to 8, 10 this year, and it would be amazing.
Is revenue per vehicle per day a good metric to track, or that's not the biggest metric?
We track that metric just like everybody else, and there are dozens of metrics that show whether a city is healthy or not. But I think at the very top of the company, fundamentally, we are a consumer service. We are serving consumers. And so the question is, how many people are you serving? And how do you make that bigger? And then how many transactions per month do you get from these users because you're providing them a fantastic service? So these are the two things I track myself.
Got it. You mentioned that you're almost in 400 cities now, almost pushing closer to 100 million, trips per year. Um, do you see any new unlocks? Like, for example, I don't know if you remember a couple of years ago, we were on stage with the CEO of Swing. You were on stage as well. They have a franchising model. There's a company in Kazakhstan called Jet. They're expanding through franchising model. Are you looking at any new models to scale further?
Yeah, just to avoid any misunderstanding, 200 million trips per year, that's my North Star.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
We're not yet there.
Yeah.
I wish. There are 3 or 4 levers in our business. The first one is software. The second one is hardware. And the third one is operations models. Then there are other things, but to keep it simple. We are very, very clear for the last 4 years that with every generation of software, we do a better job. The user app gets better. We do a better job moving people to passes. We are trading loyalty in exchange of more affordable rides in a profitable way. We use enormous amount of machine learning to match supply and demand, so put the fleet at the right place in the right time in a profitable way. We use a lot of machine learning for allocating our labor, our people to the right tasks, whether it's repairs, swapping or rebalancing. So we can track the impact and the efficiency of software. We also track the efficiency of hardware. So with every generation, every generation learns from the repairs you've done from the previous one. The batteries, they get more efficient. So overall, it gets better. In operations, what we've learned, so I love the footprint of that because we are quite diversified. We are quite fragmented, which is a good thing, but we are not overextended. I have a love. I think Lime is a fantastic company. They're a formidable competitor, but I wonder how they manage from San Francisco all the way, Sydney to Paris to. So it must be very difficult.
Yeah.
At least we have fewer time zones. We've learned that it's very important to adjust your product to the local needs and to adjust your operations to the local possibilities. The way an entrepreneur is going to possibly partner with us in Saudi Arabia will look nothing like in the middle of Germany or in the UK. And you have to feel the opportunities and adjust. It's not one model everywhere. So yes, we have different operations models from all the way 100% in-house, all the way to local franchisee or local partners. And we adjust based on our needs and based on what the local opportunities are.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, time zone is a very, very important thing. I think you're the second person talking about it. First was I was talking to Michael from Bird. He said the same thing. I mean, they are focusing on North America mostly right now, and for him, it's the answer was that if you want to run operations in many different time zones, you're looking at a 24/7 customer support team. The entire dynamics changes, right, for the company.
But yeah, you're right. But I personally like to spend time with users. I can tell you, you spend a day in Riyadh, and the way they talk about how it moves, how it's in their lives and what they do for that, there are similarities with people in London or in Paris or wherever you are today. But it's still different. I have no idea what a consumer looks like in Sydney. And I don't want to fly all over there to meet them. It would be too difficult. I think it's very, very important to be successful, to build a product that has great product market fit. You want the same product almost everywhere, but it needs to be adjusted. And there are plenty of little things we do at Dott to adjust our product to the local needs. And so if you have too many time zones, then it becomes much, much harder. I was at Uber, for example, when Uber wanted to dominate the world. But look where they are today. They are not in China. They are not in Southeast Asia. They bought their way in Middle East, in Russia. So a global company is hard to build. And so I think you want to be large enough so you're diversified. You want to be fragmented enough because it leads to more opportunities, but you don't want to be overextended.
Yeah, got it. On the topic of Lime, I mean, I'm really happy that they are at the scale where they are today, right? And I hope that they have a successful IPO as well. One of the things that differentiates them from other competitors in the market is that they have their own hardware, right? I mean, at that scale, probably it works. Do you think that's the direction that companies will take when they get to the size of Lime? I mean, you're on the way, right? I mean, Dot was much smaller. Now it's much bigger. You're at a much bigger scale. But at what scale does it make sense to build your own hardware, or does it make sense at all to build your own hardware?
Well, the way I think of it is like that. Two things on my mind. The first one is that there's no question. Everybody agrees that a few years ago, the hardware we could buy off the shelves wasn't so great. And so there was enormous positive impact of having your own hardware and customize it to your own needs and have this incredibly fast loop between feedback from the market, putting it into proper music on the next generation of hardware. I think Lime has done an amazing job. Actually, Jump started that, and then Lime. The second thing on my mind is that at some point, I'm not sure it makes sense. So, for example, if you're an airline company, you clearly don't want to build your plane. If you're a bus company, you don't want to build your buses. If you're a train company, the last thing you're going to do is build your own trains. And I think there's enormous level of R&D, having manufacturing chains, leveraging hardware manufacturers that bring R&D from many different domains and many different products. I don't know where micromobility is at. Are we in the Lime world where you need to have your own hardware, or are we more like a train company or a bus company or an airline company where it makes no sense whatsoever? What we've seen is that through our hardware partnerships, we have two partners, the level of R&D has dramatically increased, and we are learning a lot from what they see on other products. So everything around supply, quality, manufacturing, logistics. We get so much from the fact that these people do other products than just our products.
Yeah.
So I'm more into maybe this is the right way to do so.
Yeah, just staying as a platform, not like building your own hardware, right? I mean, own the software but not the hardware, kind of, right?
We are not really a platform. We're an operator, and it's our job to bring the best of software, hardware, operations. I don't know, SIM connectivity, regulation, and package it all together into a service that just works and is affordable. That's our job. If on the way there, we need to build custom talents. So, for example, regulation, understanding the cities, understanding what they need and how to deliver that in a transparent way and in a reliable way, that I think is something very special to us that needs to be done in-house. But if you take another example, SIM connectivity, we shouldn't be building a mobile operator for that.
Yeah.
So you as the entrepreneur, you need to be very clear on things that are going to move the needle for you. And then you need to be very clear whether you do this in-house or you're going to partner. And there are plenty of other entrepreneurs that can do a great job. Another example where the industry has changed quite a lot is, for example, all the things we are talking about machine learning. So in the early days, there were some players that offered packages to do a matching of supply and demand, and you could plug that through an API and so forth. We decided it would be more important for us to do it in-house, would be a core competency. But I know other people outsource that. That's a choice that can be borderline, because I can see why you would want to outsource to some AI model that type of computation if they do a great job at supply and demand matching for other industries. But for us, that's something we do in-house.
Last question on the hardware topic before we move on. So if you look at the scooter, I mean, it has evolved so much. I mean, the recent versions that we see on the streets, it's really, really good compared to how it was many years ago. And I think Maxim was mentioning that some of these scooters, they last like 7 to 10 years, right? So it has matured a lot, right? Do you still think there's a gap in hardware, maybe on the bike side or generally? I mean, do you see there's still much more to do on the hardware side in micromobility, or are we like, saturated?
I'm not sure what you mean by saturated. I think if you talk about, I'll talk about the hardware and then I'll talk about the fleet size. On the hardware side of things, there's so much more we could do. So, for example, we made so much progress on battery autonomy. I mean, no one says that we can't do more. The saddle, I'll take a basic example, the saddle or the basket on our new bikes in Paris. I think they're amazing. I'm sure we'll come up with new ideas to make it even better. We could do a better job on the tires, make them tender but reliable. So I think hardware will continue to evolve. In terms of saturation, if you're thinking about fleet size, I think a lot of cities at the right capacity. I'm not sure doubling the fleet size in many cities would be a good thing to do. You could expand in the suburbs. You could address more cities. There are plenty of cities that still don't have this type of scooter sharing or bike sharing scheme. But in a big city like I'll take Paris as an example because I'm here today. I don't think you need to double the capacity today.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, the reason for the hardware question is that, I mean, just tell the audience also that, that there's more to be done in hardware. I mean, it's not that the scooter as a hardware piece is saturated. There's much more to work on. I mean, like you said, battery tech is an important thing. We also see more companies building in battery space as well. Do you think there's any other unlock there? Because there was also a time when we had like all the computer vision companies, if you remember. There were many things that were tried. What do you think is the biggest hardware progress in the next years?
The thing, look at the past to predict the future. The thing that has been completely game-changing in our industry is the arrival of bike sharing. Instantly, we cater to many more users. Sometimes I say scooters is like Android and bikes are like the iPhone. If you're young, you don't want to look like dad and mom. So you're going to be on a scooter. If you're older, your scooter is not your thing. So bike is very important. The early bikes were very heavy, very difficult for many users to ride. The new bikes, I think they cater to so many more people. I think they are the right size, but it's just one generation. There's so much. There's still so much. We do. I mean, I can't say everything we work on until it's live, but we already thinking about the next generation. And I'm sure many entrepreneurs will be exactly like me. The minute you ship something, the very next minute you see all the things you could do a better job at. So I can tell you I'm not running out of ideas on things that could be improved.
Yeah. So founders who are, I mean, there are many hardware founders who would be listening. They should build, they should still build in Mac.
I worked for a great person. So I worked at Facebook, and Mark Zuckerberg was known to. He would ship. There was a gong. You would slam the gong to say you ship, and the very next minute he was already in a mode of okay, what's in the next version? We need to change this. We need to change that, and so forth. He would never stop. I think it's a good behavior. The consumers we talk to, they always want more. If you just sit down with them, just go through customer service feedback or app store reviews, or just I do that a lot. I sit in the street, I go to parking spot and I talk to them. The list of things they would want to change is gigantic. Yeah. We're never going to have enough software engineers for that. So no, I'm not worried. And in 5-10 years from now, the industry will look completely different. I don't think we'll have flying bikes, just to be clear.
Got it. Something that you mentioned, which I don't think many founders do. I mean, you keep saying this as well, that you actually talk to users. You spend a lot of time talking to users. Right now, you said you go to a parking spot and then try to talk to users. Do you do that systematically? How often do you do this? Can you unpack that a little for us?
Yeah, sure. So I do it for two reasons. The first one is when I feel down. Yeah. And because we have like some harshness, we lost a tender or something like this. The best recipe for me is to talk to users. Mm-hmm. Because, and on top of that, since I'm talking to people who are using it, of course they are going to say, oh, I don't like this, I don't like that, and so on. But behind the scenes, there's a reason why they're using it, because they love it. And most of the feedback we get is actually, I love it, but if you could do this, it would be even better. So I get a lot of energy out of this. The second thing is I talk to users. Either I tell them I work for the company, and so I get one type of feedback, or I tell them I have no idea what I'm doing here. Can you please show me how to use this thing? And I learn so much. So no, I like to do it. I think everybody in product should do this on a regular basis.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, every founder should do this. I mean, if you're in, I don't know, like quick commerce business, go deliver products. But if you're in ride hailing, go, do some trips, right? But then do you like do it like systematically? Like you said, when you have a hard time, you go meet users. But then do you like do it like, for example, I don't know, once a month? You definitely have to do it. Do you just do it systematically, or random?
In the early days, yes, because I thought it was part of our tasks. So I would typically do it. I would not do it alone. We would go in a group setting. Today, I think it's more opportunistic.
Got it. Okay, cool. Moving on from that, so you have an incredible profile, like I mentioned earlier. I don't think anybody in the industry has such a profile. How is your approach to tech very different from others in the market today?
You mean others in the micromobility market?
Yeah, others in the micromobility market, yeah.
That's a difficult question. So first of all, they are very smart. I think a lot of them are much smarter than I am. Look, I think the way to look at this is I got a chance to work for great people, and I learned the difference between good and great. And they were really great people. So I'm just trying to replicate some of the things I've seen them. I'm not saying I copy everything they do. There are things I think we should be doing differently. The world today is not the world 10 years ago, for sure. But so I just, okay, what if XYZ was in the room? How would he think about it? Talking to the users, for example, is something I've learned in my previous companies. The companies I work for, because especially Facebook and Uber were companies that were very, very focused on the consumer and trying to understand what they need and how to service them without creating friction. We were obsessed with the user experience, and I think I brought a lot of that with me.
Got it.
I don't know. So one thing I would recommend to every entrepreneur, the world today is so much easier than it was 10 or 15 years ago, because now you have podcasts, for example, yours, where you can learn a ton. I think it's insane the level of content there is out there, whether you want to be motivated, where you want to build expertise on some topic. So I do listen to a lot of podcasts.
Yeah,
I don't listen to the entire podcast. I do selective. I pick specific areas and so on. But I've learned so much. There's so many teachers out there that want to share their knowledge.
Yeah.
So one of the things, and we are talking about this in the early days, what I've learned from Facebook and Uber, I learned plenty of things, but I've learned about product market fit and time to market and how to navigate that. And I think one of the consequences for that is how fast do we want to invest and expand? When is the right time to go into bikes? Do we do it early or not? We were one of the first players. Lime was first, but we are, I think, the second player to really go into bikes, because again, coming from our understanding of product market fit and what the consumers really wanted. So it was riskier to go into bikes, but we thought it would be interesting to do so. So it's more, and these fundamental stories around the product market fit and time to market, and therefore the speed at which you invest.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. I don't know if I can share that story, if that can be useful, but anyway, I think it's a great story. If you compare I worked at eBay, and you can look online how much money eBay invested before going to IPO. Then you can compare that to Facebook, you can compare that to Uber, and you can compare that, for example, to OpenAI. And it's not just a 2x factor, it's almost 10x.
Yeah.
The speed at which people go and the level of investment at which they go at has increased. And so when we started that, we were thinking, okay, what's the right speed for us?
Mm-hmm.
And that's probably why we were a bit different than some of the other players.
Got it. Yeah, but on the product side, something that I noticed, this was many years ago, right? So every app out there had a similar layout and, the same kind of functionalities. What is different for Dott was that you could actually navigate the entire app with your thumb. right? So I don't know if you remember the first versions of the Dot app. You had all the menu at the bottom, so you could easily
Yeah.
navigate that. That was one. And second was I went around doing a test about how much time it takes from app open to scooter unlock. So because there's multiple steps, right, that happens in the background. Dot was one of the companies where it was like the fastest.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
So this was many years ago. I don't know how it is right now, but then I was wondering, if these were like intentional, because these are clear differentiators compared to others, right? Were they intentional, coming from your experiences at eBay and Facebook? And can you say something about that?
Yeah, so it's interesting you saw that, because I can tell you we clearly thought about this.
Yeah.
And I mean, some of it comes from designing. So actually these two ideas weren't coming from it. So someone else in the team, but we had plenty of former Facebook, former Uber in the team, and I think that's part of the DNA of these mobile apps for these companies. And another interesting small example was we had these little sparkles at the end of the ride. Because we're about creating opportunities in your life. We celebrate the ride. I don't know, you're going to see your friends, your work. We want to be happy. It's a happy ride. So we had these little sparkles at the end. That's also another example. And some people still talk about it.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, it's very important to not get in the way of getting on a bike in traffic under when it's cold, when there's the rain. If you have glasses like me, it can be even more daunting. And it's very, very important. It's as simple as possible. So we're thinking about these edge cases. So, for example, what if you have glasses?
Got it. With your product background, I mean, it's such a long product background that you have. What's the next big unlock from a product point of view? I'm talking purely from a tech point of view. Either on the app side. One of the things that Maxim was talking about is, can we like eliminate mobile completely? Can you unlock the scooter without even using mobile? He said that on stage in Brussels. Do you think about something in those lines? What's the next biggest product unlock?
Parking is the number one friction today.
Okay.
Finding the right parking spot. Some cities they are concerned about saturation. It's the number one concern on my radar. I think we can always do a better job. I have plenty of ideas on how we can improve. It's going to be a big focus for us in 2026. Yeah, okay, but no flying bikes, no.
Yeah, I mean, on the parking topic, I fully agree. I mean, I've struggled with parking bays which are completely full and you cannot park there anymore, and then you had to go find a parking bay which is like empty, and you don't know if the next parking bay is empty or not, right? As a user.
Yeah, so when you were asking about what did I learn talking to users, what I've learned is that it's a very different trip for people if they know where they're going and where they're going to park. For example, go to the office, go back home, go see my friends, I've been there before, versus a new place. And in some cities, the parking density is not high enough.
Yeah.
And so it can lead to a lot of anxiety and friction at the moment of parking. And so they are not, it's very interesting because they will tell you, I'm not thinking about the trip in the same way, whether I know where I'm going, therefore where I'm going to park, versus, and for casual users, they don't even anticipate parking. So it's even more a daunting task at the very end of it.
Exactly. I mean, parking is, I'm with you that parking is one of the important things to absolutely solve. I had the same in Paris. I was using bikes, and I had exactly the same thing. I mean, I had to walk a lot, defeating the entire purpose of using micromobility.
Yeah, Paris is a good city for that. But in the early days, for example, of London and scooters, it was just a joke.
Yeah.
You could try to park in Soho and you couldn't. You had to walk 20 minutes at your own expenses because you're late to your meeting. On top of that, you pay the ride. I mean, it's just bad experience.
Yeah. So AI is a big buzzword today. I don't want to spend a lot of time on AI, but want to understand if AI is really making a big impact in how you build products today and how the company is shaping up. Yeah,
Yeah, so it has had a major impact for us in the past. I wouldn't call it actually AI. I mean, AI is a big word that has plenty of things, but one thing specifically that worked extremely well for us is machine learning. So we run thousands of simulations every day on thousands or hundreds of our cities to understand what if we are going to move the fleet like this and like that, what would be the impact on how we serve demand. And that piece of technology is extremely important. I think it can make or break a city from profitable to very profitable or not profitable at all. And so we forecast the demand, we look at weather, we look at historic patterns, we try to understand if there are special occasions in that city at this moment. Therefore, we compute where is the fleet, where we should move it. Is it worth investing? Should we send a van? Should we send a cargo bike to move some of the items, some of the vehicles? So that type of machine learning has been completely game-changing for us. Another area on the user side of things is fundamentally we push people into packages, and we are trading loyalty in exchange of more affordable rides. But we need to do that in a way we don't lose our shirt.
yeah,
We want to be profitable. So there's a ton of machine learning in order to compute what would be the impact if these people were to do this and do that. Is this the right time to talk to them? What if it converts, it doesn't convert, and so on. The next big thing for us is agentic AI. There are plenty of processes. We are consumer service, but behind the scene, it's a logistics company. We run thousands of processes in hundreds of cities. We do millions of tasks every year. How much of that can be semi-automated? So
yeah,
one of the things, for example, we do leveraging AI is that now we send a report every morning to operations managers. We are in the process of testing that because we want to find the right tone and the right type of content so it's relevant. But AI has enabled us to compute what needs to be done today based on plenty of different data sources. And these are things that you couldn't do a few years ago. And so I'm very, very excited about this. Yeah. I
got
think it
it.
will have a massive impact for us and massive impact for many other players in many other industries.
Yeah. So if you look at every company, if you look at all the large companies in shared micromobility today, Lime, Voy, you guys, even if you take the case of Bird, right? Every company is growing, right? And some of the companies are, still doing double-digit growth percentages every year, right? And when you have an ecosystem of such large companies, you also have a small ecosystem forming around that, right? It could be like founders building new tools that some of these large companies can use, and as the industry matures, this ecosystem will grow as well, right? If you have to tell new founders out there who are listening, for them to build something in this space, what are some of the challenges, or what are some of the tools that or software products that they can build which could be useful for companies like you?
It's a great question. If you're an entrepreneur, I think it's important to build something that can be leveraged in many different industries.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're not going to build the same software for an ice cream company and a micromobility company. But there's plenty of opportunities to make every business, including ours, better. We don't do everything in-house. We talked about some things we want to do in-house, some of the things we don't do in-house. So we do a lot of cross-border payments, we do a payroll, we hire and we manage performance. That's just people. And it's a huge chunk of our industry. There's so many SaaS companies or software companies that help us do a better job. You can take on the consumer side of things, understanding users, seeing I can't really talk about some of the things we've done behind the scenes. We just, for example, one of the key elements of our user experience, we just added a small company to next to a very large company and we orchestrate arbitrage the traffic between these two players. And that's a small company that started from just a bunch of engineers that were very focused on one very specific things. So even if there are big companies that do things, there's still opportunities because technology evolves and you can do today a better job than other players were doing 5 or 10 years ago. There's plenty of opportunities. Most of the time when I meet entrepreneurs, I always tell them, entrepreneurs and investors, they tend to overestimate short-term and underestimate the long-term. The overestimate in the short-term could be in a positive way. So, for example, they have gigantic expectations on the level of growth and valuation and how fast you want to hire and build. Or it can be extremely negative too. For example, in our industry, at some point, all the players had a hard time and everybody across the industry and outside the industry thought in the short term, they're all going to die. But the reality for the long term, it always works. And you can see the sparkle that is going to work in the long term because in the early days, you have a product that brings magic for the users. So when we started Dott, I was so convinced that would create so many opportunities for users that it would work. Maybe it wasn't going to be Dott, maybe it would be something, but one day the world would be like this. I remember you telling me the story of the founder of Jump. I think if the founder of Jump were in Paris today, he would see what he had dreamt about, I don't know, when it was 15 years ago or something like this. So it's a perfect example of, don't overestimate the short term, positive or negative, and don't underestimate the long term. Yeah. And the right entrepreneurs will have a great vision for the long term. They will work their way backward from there. And they will decide, okay, what is the product I'm going to build for product market fit? And at which pace do I go? Super fast, super slow. Well, super slow is never a good thing, but super fast or to adjust the speed so you get there, but you don't crash on the way.
Got it. I think that's a good segue to talk about cities. Cities are transforming. So if you look at a couple of years ago when all this started, one of the things was that regulation should be right. There should be more protected bike lanes. But if you look at cities like London, Paris, it's transformed in an unimaginable way. Right? So talking about the story of Jump's founder, I was with Ryan in Paris a couple of months ago, and we were we took one of the Lime bikes and we were like going around, and he was fascinated. So for him, it was like, this is exactly the kind of state where I envision cities to be, right? And they exited I think 2018 timeframe to Uber. And the funny thing is that the amount of revenue that Lime is making just in the UK every year probably is higher than the value assigned at that time for Jump's assets. Right? It's incredible, right? So on that note, I mean, what do you see in terms of cities? Which cities are? Let me put it this way: what's your ideal city today? What's the best performing city today? What are they doing right?
The best cities for us are the cities that went from this is a toy to this is a public. It's a fundamental utility that I need to have in the city, whether it's private ownership of bikes or shared. I think a lot of cities also are moving away from I need to sponsor these schemes to it can be run by a private company, so I might as well do that. Every city will get there. Again, don't overestimate the short term, but for sure, don't underestimate the long term. What you see in Paris, what you see in London, nobody could think this would be the case 15 years ago.
Exactly.
And the cities, they tend to think very long term. I mean, maybe you have change of politicians and things like that, but the cities are going to be here for hundreds of years. The world is not going back. It's fewer cars, more bikes, whether they are shared. So I think that the great cities for us are the ones who are leaning forward as opposed to leaning backward. And most cities now, they are leaning forward. Yeah. It's very rare. Very rare. We see cities leaning backward. So sometimes it doesn't go well because they want to over-regulate or they want to under-regulate, or they talk about parking, but there's not enough parking. there's always going to be some noise. But the destination, don't underestimate the long term. Every city will look like Paris and London.
Exactly. That is a very great example. If I've been to Paris, many times, and if you look at the recent times, 99% of my, if you look at my mobility mode, it's all like bikes. So it has transformed so much. I think every other city should take example. Look at Paris and take some inspiration. Right. I think same for London as well. Right.
Yeah, I haven't been in every city across the world and everything, but I think the fastest moving city is Manhattan.
Okay.
And if I talk to my friends who live there, and you look where they are now with city bikes, and where it was like even during COVID times, it's crazy how fast it has gone. And I think every city could move as fast as that.
Yeah, exactly. In terms of regulations, I mean, I know that cities are maturing as well. There's more long-term contracts. When you were on stage in Brussels, I believe you said the perfect length of a tender is 6 years, right? How do you see that today? I mean, is it like are you for example, picking one operator, give them a contract for 6 years, 10 years, so that they can have a absolute good base, similar to station-based bike share systems in cities, right? What's your outlook like for that today?
I don't think it should be 10 years
Okay.
because I think whether it's us or anyone else, whether it's micromobility or something else, 10 years is too long of a time frame. And I think companies become sloppy.
Yeah.
So you want to, there is some investment. You're building a team, you're training them. What you built for 2 years, you don't want to wind down a year later. So anything below 3 years, I don't think is reasonable, but 10 years, no. And so the 6 you're quoting me for 6 is just okay, not 10, not 3. Let's do in the middle. It's as simple as that.
Okay, got it. And do you think picking just one player makes sense, or you need like a couple of players in the market in every city?
Competition always brings good things. There are sometimes setups where it doesn't make sense to do competition. It's very rare. If you're limited in parking, for example, you probably don't want to do that. So I'm fine with no competition. Competition doesn't matter too much to me. I think the cities need to see what they want to do, but overall, I think competition for industry and for every industry has always brought better user experiences for users and for cities.
Got it. What's the next biggest unlock for shared micromobility? So you said you're at 100 million rides, close to 200 million revenue, and what's the next big unlock for your growth?
I think so. It's going to sound very dull, but I think we want to do more of the same in a better way. And we are just at the beginning of organic growth. So every rider today is going to do maybe 10, 15, 20% more rides next year. We can accelerate that with more affordable, more reliable rides. I think we've talked about the impact of hardware. The more reliable it is, the more they get confident. The more affordable it is, the more they're going to ride because people are price sensitive in our industry, just like for many other things. So there's just gigantic opportunities for us to do a much better job, much bigger job, with more or less the same. I think a lot of our 2026 strategy is around small things where the compound effect of all these things bring gigantic change, and not flying bikes.
Got it. Do you think there's still scope for a global consolidation to build another global player next to Lime?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. We see. Today, I think we want to be realistic on the things we can serve in an efficient way. So I don't think, yes, we should be operating in Sydney. It's just too far for us. So I don't know if there's going to be another worldwide player. I think also the number of players in the industry, for example, in Europe, is going to be quite stable. I think maybe some players will come in, some players will go, but I don't see 10 people coming in. I don't see everybody packing up and going away. So to me, 2026 is a year of hard work where you get the compound effect of small things among there will be big changes. In our product roadmap, we have couple of initiatives that are going to be freaking game changing. They're coming soon. I can't wait to ship them. But again, behind the scenes, from a user standpoint, it's still going to be a bike. It's not a flying bike. It's just going to be more reliable, more available, more affordable. They won't even notice the difference, but it will be a much better experience.
Got it. So we are almost at the end of the episode, and this time we are doing one extra segment, which is very interesting. So what we did was we went and spoke to a couple of people that are very close to you, have worked with you for a very long time, and I have some questions from them. Right. So the first one is from Maxim Roma, who is also the co-founder of Dott. He's been with you for a very, very long time, from over 4 times. So the question that he has is that apparently you have these, sticky sentences that you use. One of the things that he mentioned is like, till the money is in the bank, it's not in the bank. So you apparently say these sentences, and apparently it stick with people a lot, and people start using that again and again. And he wants to know, how do you come up with these? Why is it like very effective? Can you tell me more about that?
That's an interesting one. Yeah. So I'm not the only one, by the way. I know plenty of other people that do that. I think you need to be, as a leader, it's very important to rally people around simple messages. And then you need to repeat them again and again and again. One of the things I thought was quite inspiring was I had a friend at Amazon who told me that Jeff Bezos, at some point, he told him that all he was doing is repeating the same thing thousands of times for every new employee, every dinner, every meeting, and so on. You keep the main thing. That's also a big one of mine. Stay strong, keep pushing in the face of adversity. Fundraising until it's in the bank, it's not in the bank. So I've got these little things. I keep repeating them, but I think they need to be very, very simple, and you need to repeat them again and again and again. The job of a leader is not to come up with something new. The job of a leader is to get everybody aligned around the same vision, the same strategy, the same roadmap, with very simple messages that you repeat again and again and again. So everybody's super clear on what needs to be done. And so simplifying the message to the extreme like this is one way I do this. Yes.
Yeah. And I think also one of the first meetings that you had with the team at Dott was about not about expansion and I think about core values of the company, right? At the early times.
Yeah. What are we going to build and how we're going to build it? These are the two fundamental questions that every entrepreneur should think about when he starts a company.
Exactly. So second question is somebody that was he's a very influential figure in the industry, and not many probably know him very well, but he was part of the Dott story early on. He was also part of the Dott tier merger story as well. He's Philippe. He was also he was on the board of Dott till early this year, I believe. And he was part of Sofina, a very large investment fund that has been supporting Dott for a very long time, right? And I think one of the questions that he had is that something that people don't know about you a lot is that one of your superpowers is business development, right? And how are you really good at business development? And second is like, can we expect Henri Moissinac business development masterclass?
I've been thinking about it. A lot of people have been pushing me to do so. So I do have a couple of magic tricks.
Okay. Can you give us like one or two? What makes you like a good business developer?
Sure. So, but before I tell you that, one of my mentors in the very early days of my career told me, you should do this. It's a bit of a pain, but it will pay off dramatically. I got my job at Facebook thanks to that. I got my job at Uber thanks to that. I think I got Sofina to participate. Philippe would know exactly why I'm saying that. Because of that, it has paid off tremendously. I'm grateful. Actually, it's another Philippe who told me that. Okay. So if Philippe listens, he will know exactly who he is. So I track people and I remember what they need and how I could help them. Mm-hmm. I do have a database of like 15,000, 20,000 names. Every people I've met, I can tell you when I met them and what they were looking for. And this ability to understand what people are looking for, I can't serve 20,000 people.
Yeah, yeah.
But remembering what they are looking for and if I can help, it pays off. It is a compound effect of that. So
Yeah.
yes, it's one of my,
Yeah.
but I got all the tricks. And yes, yeah, at some point, some people have pushed me to do a masterclass. There are so many people who are much better in business development than I am. Don't get me wrong. And all the tricks I've learned from someone else. So it won't be the masterclass of Henry. It will be the masterclass of everything Henry learned from someone else.
Yeah, I mean, the second part of the question is something that you mentioned. So what you also mentioned is that apparently, when you go to networking dinners or even LP dinners, for example, you walk around with a laptop. And that laptop has a giant Excel sheet. It's an Excel sheet with like name and who this person is and all that. And you keep filling that. Do you still do that? And then can you tell us more about that? And Philippe was like, can we productize that? That should be a product. Right.
Yeah. So I don't, I don't walk around with my spreadsheet, but yes, I will fill in the spreadsheet in the following days. And there are ways to productize it, to systematize. It's something I keep pushing young people. The same way I was told you should do this. It's a pain, but it will pay off, and it has paid off a lot for me. People that work in business development with me, I push them into doing that.
Okay.
In business development, just like in sales, your power is to know people and what they're looking for. And even if you met someone like 8 or 10 years ago, even if that person has changed country, jobs, and everything, the fact you remember and you show this empathy of, hey, John, when we met in Dubai, you were looking for this and looking for that. How is your life different? Is there anything I can do for you today? The power of that empathy is gigantic.
Yeah.
And the compound effect of this across many industries and many countries, you can become a connector. I think business development, the science is to be the right connector at the right time with the right people. And hopefully I've learned how to do some of that.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, I try to do this from memory, but and I don't have really good memory. I'm going to take this step. I'm definitely going to put a Excel sheet and track people and put what they're looking for. And to end the session, right? So we have a lot of founders as part of the network who are listening to this, entrepreneurs who are trying to build something new. If you look at your career, you're part of all the big waves. You're part of the .com, mobile, and now micromobility as well. Your advice to anybody that's building today? You may title off the industry. I'm not speaking specifically for micromobility. Generally, any entrepreneur building out there, what would be your message from all the learnings that you had over the last 20, 30 years?
If you want to be a founder, do it. It's incredibly rewarding. It's incredibly tough sometimes too. If you feel you have the stamina, the energy, and so on, do it. The second thing is start with the problem. The entrepreneurs that I've seen not be successful are the ones that say, I want to start a company, but I just don't know what I'm going to do. You have to start with a problem. It could be a user problem, it could be an enterprise problem, I don't know, any problem, but you have to start a problem. And then what is the long-term solution? Okay, I can't build it on day one. How do I work my way backward? And how do I avoid overestimating the short term and underestimating the long term? So definitely do it. And then have the mindset, start with the problem, think about it for the long term, and work your way backward from the end point. I think if you're, then maybe the last point is so much content on the internet. You were talking about fundraising. There's so much content about how to fundraise today. When I think you were asking about masterclasses, anybody who's doing fundraising, for example, should listen to Fabrice Grinda, Playing with Unicorns. And he, in his podcast, in the early episodes, I forgot the numbers, but there's plenty of how to build a deck, how to talk to VCs, how to understand their business, how to validate a product market fit, how to build an MVP. I mean, you can't do much. You can't do better content than this podcast. But it's the same in product. It's the same. I don't know, in tax. if you're interested in taxes. There's so much content on the internet. So be in a mindset of you're constantly learning. Don't overestimate your capacity, but keep learning. Keep learning.
Yeah, absolutely. You worked with some of the big giants in the industry, Mark Zuckerberg. You worked with Mark. You worked with the early Uber teams as well. What is one thing that you think makes entrepreneurs successful?
I think the people I've seen that are very successful, first of all, they're obsessed. That's why I think being a founder, it's a mindset. You need to be obsessed. Obsession in a positive way, because it leads to stamina, it leads to energy, it leads to trying to change things for the better. And the second thing, they are very clear on what they are trying to achieve. So they start from the user. They spend a lot of, the founders I work for, they were doing consumer services, but I'm sure it's the same for enterprise.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So again, they're obsessed with the problem that they're trying to solve and how to get there, and somehow they can pull people around them. And that's why communication skills are very important. We are talking about simplifying the messages, being very clear on the priorities and not changing them every day. If you look at a lot of like founders now, like the big ones, they're on the internet all the time. They do interviews, podcasts, and everything. Listen to how consistent, how clear their communication, how they're focused and obsessed. Just try to replicate some of that, and you'll be successful.
Absolutely, Henri. It's been a pleasure talking to you. You're an inspiration for many in the industry. If you look at some of the large companies in the space, most of the founders are not around, but you're still there building. That's that's an inspiration for all of us. Thank you so much for coming on the pod, and thank you so much for sharing everything that you know.
I think we should congratulate the other founders in that space, because all of them are like very smart, very bright, very obsessed, very clear in their communication, lots of stamina, and focusing on the end user. And we're not the only one at Dott. I think everybody's done a great job.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Henri, for coming on the pod.
Thank you for your time.